This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Cliff Yates Show. You're in the right place. And today we're going to talk about NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. A lot of people have heard about it, and a lot of people have not. You hear a lot about it today with the coaching industry. People use it for transformational coaching. And NLP in itself really is nothing. It's just a collection of philosophies and ideas for personal growth, personal development, how we can model excellence, and how we not only can better communicate with ourselves, but with other people. And NLP was developed by two guys in the 1970s, John Grinder and Richard Bandler. These two guys, one was into linguistics, and the other was into computers. And if you read, I read a little history of these guys, Grinder, and it's spelled Grinder, but I know it's Grinder because I've seen videos of John speaking. But they were both students at the University of California, Santa Cruz, when they first met. Bandler was studying mathematics and computer science. With Grinder was a linguistics professor. They shared an interest in human behavior and psychology, and together they began studying the work of successful therapists and communications in order to model their techniques and strategies. And so they studied these psychologists who were helping people trying to get better, or maybe even to cure or heal themselves from some psychological problem. And they decided, hey, what about people who don't really have a psychological problem, but they do want to get better, be better, communicate better? And so what if someone doesn't need fixing, but they want to get to the next level of personal development? And so maybe we can model what these psychologists are doing. And modeling really does work. So, I mean, if you want to have the same results that somebody else is getting, you can start doing what they're doing, and you're probably going to get similar results. It's a good way to model a business or someone who's having success in a similar type of arena that you want to get in or are already in and want to get to that next level of excellence. So it's really about modeling excellence, but it's in the bigger picture, it's all about how we process information that comes into our brain. It really is a manual for running our brain. And I talked in an earlier podcast episode about Tony Robbins, and he developed NAC, Neuro Associative Conditioning, which really was a spin-off that he took from NLP. He was a big studier of NLP and follower of NLP, but he branched off into his own kind of excellence and modeling, and he called it neuroassociative conditioning. But he certainly began his study of this kind of thing with NLP, studying these guys, and became an expert in transformational change, in changing how we think will change what we do and change our results. I mean, that's basically the name of the game. Now I'm going to read a little bit about some stuff that's online here. That's, NLP is based on an idea that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all interconnected, which they are. And that by changing one, we can change the others. The field of NLP includes a wide range of techniques and strategies designed to help individuals achieve their goals, such as anchoring, and we'll talk about anchoring. I know we talked a little bit about anchoring in neuroassociative conditioning, and it's just basically associating a specific state that we're in, such as confidence, or being relaxed with a specific stimulus, which might be a movement. And I think we talked earlier about, get yourself into a state and then associate that with a movement, right? I used to do before I went on stage as a stand-up comedian, right? I would over and over again get myself into a positive state through listening to music. And while I was in that state, I would shake my hand. In that state, shake my hand. In that state, shake my hand. So that when I was getting ready to go on stage at a comedy club, then I would shake my hand in that way, and immediately I would be in that state. You might have just saw right then my face kind of changed when I did that, because I was associating that with that move with going on stage right before I would perform a stand-up set. And it really worked every single time, because you know what? You never know exactly when you're going to go on. You might have to wait a long time. The show might be delayed. You just might have had a bad day, and you're in a different state. Well, you know, when you get on stage, you want to be in that most empowering comedic state that you can be in. So NLP was certainly a great way to use anchoring as one of the strategies of getting myself in the proper state at the right time. Just like you might want to do if you have an interview coming up that's very important to you. Are you going to take a chance on maybe when an interview comes up, by the time you get there, that you're in a negative state? Maybe you were stuck in traffic. Something might have happened earlier in the day, yesterday, the week before. But if you can get to that interview and right before you go in, a little shake of the hand or whatever, touch of a finger that you've associated, you've anchored your positive state with that physical motion, you will be immediately brought back to that state. And we do it by accident, so why not do it on purpose? That's one of the main things about NLP. Purposely putting ourselves into positive states when we want to be in that state. The example I used, and I'll use it again, is you're at a funeral, everybody's feeling bad, depressed, you're down, you're physically, your head's down, you're feeling sad, people are going by, touching you on the shoulder, hey, sorry, bad, feeling bad, touch on the shoulder, feeling bad, touch on the shoulder, feeling bad. 10 years later, someone can touch you on the shoulder in just that way, and then you're depressed immediately and wonder, why? How come I'm feeling so bad? You were anchored to feel that way by being in that state, and you were anchored with that motion or touch. Happens by accident to us, but we can also use it on purpose, which will empower us. And that's one of the powerful things about NLP. So NLP also, it has to deal with the modalities of how we process information. And by modalities, I mean we take things in by the senses, right? Sight, sound, right? See, hear, smell, touch, and so feel. So we got all those 5 senses. So we have a priority to how we like to process. So, and you know that with yourself, with other people. Some people are visual, right? So that's their preferred modality of taking information. They like to see it, video. People are auditory. They need to hear it. So they listen to audiobooks, right? So that's their preferred way of getting it. They do best when they're gathering information by hearing it, auditory. Like my wife does not read books by reading. She reads books auditorially. So audiobooks, she reads a lot of books on audiobooks. So her preferred modality to take in to books is hearing. So audiobooks, we've got visual, and then we got auditory, and then kinesthetic is feeling, maybe a touching of something. In acting, we called it sense memory. So we can think of a time when maybe we were in a certain state, and we touched the bar, and that feel of the wood. And so when we're in an acting scene, we can visually, and we can picture, and with our fingers we can remember touching the wood on that bar. We can get into the state that we were in at that location by sense memory. So sometimes it was touching, sometimes it's visually, sometimes we can just say something to ourselves. And so how this becomes important is when we're talking not only to ourselves, but when we're talking to other people. Now, NLP got a bad rap. It still gets a bad rap. If you look online, it'll be described as a tool for manipulation, how you can manipulate people. And the way that happened was because NLP strategies were adopted by people in the sales industry, specifically people in real estate. I became knowledgeable in NLP really the first time through real estate training. Because in real estate training, you want to learn how to communicate with people and develop rapport with them on an authentic basis, not through manipulation, but of just how can we have a connection with this person, because we're going to be dealing with someone that we want them to trust us with probably their biggest financial transaction of their life. That's going to be life transforming, and maybe it's someone we have just met. So NLP is a powerful tool for sales agents to use, and in fact, it was adopted early on by salespeople, probably not just in real estate, but in all areas of sales. And for that reason, it has gotten a bad rep for being a tool of manipulation. But definitely, that's like, someone who uses a car in a bank robbery, and the car is their getaway vehicle, and then we're going to say how bad cars are, and they're linked to robberies. Just not the case. It's a tool that someone had used in the wrong way, and of course NLP could be used also in a wrong way. Everything that can be used for a force of good can also be used for a force of bad or evil. But NLP is a great tool for learning how to better communicate with ourselves, our self-talk, what we're saying to ourselves, and what we're saying to people. But in another aspect, it's listening to not only what people are saying, but what they're doing. And you've probably heard it said many times that 70% of communication is through the body, what we're doing, and not what we're saying. 70%. And so that became very important to me when I was in the police field. It became very important when I was doing stand-up comedy, that actually my communication, here I am, everything is vocal with a microphone, and 70% is with what I'm doing with my body. It's very important to learn. So a lot of what NLP also has is you can use a strategy is also what they call mirroring and matching. So the example for this would be, you're sitting down and talking with someone, and you know how people talk. You might be with a real fast talker, someone who's really talking in a rapid way and a certain tone of voice, and man, they're just spitting things out right and left, and they're at a fast pace. As they're thinking, they're talking, and it's really fast. And then there are other people who are maybe more analytical. Their speech might be really methodical, and you might even think it's slow, like I'm trying to do right now. They may be going over their thoughts prior to them speaking. So now mirroring and matching would be, we would mirror maybe the tone and the pace of someone's speech. And we might mirror their body movements. And if you try this, when you start to maybe subtly someone, maybe they're sitting a certain way. You're with somebody, their left leg is crossed, you cross your left leg. And you can do this very subtly. It doesn't have to be in their face. They won't even know you're doing this. And maybe they cock their head to their side and you cock your head to the side. And then maybe they're one of those slow talkers. Now, if they're one of those slow talkers and analytical in how they communicate, and you're a rapid-fire, fast-talking, someone who really is speaking off the top of their head, and as you think you are talking, and it's hard for people to catch up, that person is going to be, they're going to feel the traction against it. It's not as smooth, it's going to be tough communication. So what you might do is, while you're reading that you might start to match the cadence of their speech, so that you're mirroring, at least maybe not exactly their tone, but maybe you're speaking in a way, and then the conversation will go back and forth. So not only are you matching their speech, tone, and cadence, and maybe your body language, you're mirroring in some ways, either with your arms or your hands or your legs or how you're sitting. And the next thing you know, either you or they, when, they'll pick up their coffee cup and take a drink. And next thing you know, you're picking up your coffee cup and taking a drink. And it could be vice versa. You could actually lead them in doing that. And if you're consciously doing it, you'll notice these things. They won't notice it at all. They won't even know that you're mirroring and matching them. It becomes quite fun. But in their communication, if you're actively listening, you're not just hearing, but you're actively listening to them, then you're going to pick up signals into what they're saying as to how they like to process information. They may say stuff like, when I heard this, when I first heard this, I mean, the sound of that really made me, it spoke to my heart. And I kept hearing in my head the beautiful sound of that person's voice. And boy, I heard the message they were trying to get across for me. And I can hear, you know what? It sounds to me like they have a good heart. You can start to pick up that person, just through their language, how they're sounding, that they probably prefer an auditory way of communicating. So you can use that when you are communicating with them. Listen to this. Let me know how this sounds to you. Now, hearing this, do you think this sounds like a good idea? You see how I started to use the modality language that they prefer to process information with. You find this and you can use that. Some people are visual, right? Picture this. If you can see this, can you picture in your mind? Can you see yourself sitting here in this chair? Picture yourself sitting in this chair. As a matter of fact, sit in this chair right now. Look at that view. Can you see yourself here living? See, if someone's visually, you're really catering to how they like to process information. And people do this. This is why facilitating became a big thing, or still is a big thing as far as teaching people, because when you facilitate a lesson to someone, what you're doing is you're talking to the group. So they're listening, they're hearing, they're seeing you. You're writing it on the flip chart, visual. People are visual. They're hearing, they're seeing it, they're visualizing it. Okay? And now, at your tables, I want you all to write. So now kinesthetically feeling, now you're doing it. You're actually in the action of doing it. And because of you're hitting everything, so now people are learning in all three the priority of modalities that people use, visually, auditory, and kinesthetically. Now you've hit all three. So people that prefer one or the other is going to get the message and remember it. And or they're getting it from all three because we process all three. We may prefer one, but we're always learning through all three. But if we're stacking how we're hearing and doing things, we heard it, we got the message, all right, we see it written down. Okay, now we're doing it at our tables. I'm picking up the pen and I'm writing it. All right, maybe I'm acting it out in some way at our tables, and then we come back to the big group, how they do. But there's a method to that really involves, they're catering to people's modalities in learning. And so they're actually using NLP. Before I even knew what NLP was, I was using it in the LA Sheriff's Department. We had a class that was hard to get into. It was called Analytical Interviewing. It was really reserved for detectives. But myself and another deputy who were working at the Universal Substation, we would on occasion we were interviewing suspects, taking statements, videotaping, and so we got ourselves into this detective class of analytical interviewing, which was highly sought after. But we were able to manipulate our way into the class. And without knowing it, that's exactly what this class was teaching, was how to create rapport with people we were interviewing and how to get a baseline for when they were telling the truth, and which gave us indicators then when they were lying. So it was very telling, and it was a great way to solicit, manipulate, if you will, to get suspects to open up to you and admit their crimes to you, to want to talk to you. And so analytical interviewing was the name of the class, but really it was Neuro Linguistic Programming, and we were actively listening, seeing how the suspect would be, and picking up on things, right? Picking up on, certain jewelry and the way people sat and how they reacted in normal conversation. And then when certain questions were asked, how they reacted, which would indicate they were lying, because we had a baseline for, when I ask them their name, we know their name is we know how they looked and talked when they were telling where they grew up. We know how they acted and talked when they talked about when they went to college, and we know those were all true. And so then when they lied, and then there would be different tics, and all of a sudden the body would change, then there are different things that we learn. For instance, when someone was actively remembering, I forgot the exact way to tell when someone was looking at a memory that was already in your brain. I think it was up and to the right. They would be trying to remember. And then if they look up and to the left, that's a creative memory where it's not there, but they're making it up. So you start to get tells on when people are lying to you. And so it was very powerful class. But then later I got the NLP training through the real estate classes that I was taking, and started reading books from Richard Bandler and John Grinder, and certain transformational coaching books who use NLP, and a couple online classes that I've taken on NLP. It's just a fascinating way to learn how to better communicate, not only with other people, but with ourselves. And you can use this every day in every way. You could use it when you're at work. You can use it with your family, and use it when developing relationships with other people in all areas of life. It's very powerful. So I would recommend learning more about NLP, and you can get really deep into it. I could get really deep into the woods with NLP for sure. But in this episode, I just wanted to kind of delve into the history of it, when it came about and how it's used. And it's still very popular today. Now, NLP they have a few presuppositions. So when you adopt NLP, which is why it's so powerful in transformational coaching and psychology, because they have presuppositions. They operate under, let's presuppose. They're presupposing these things are true. And if we operate from these things being true, it'll change how we think, what we do, and the results we get. And that's how coaching utilizes NLP to make transformations, to transform people's lives. And we can use that stuff. And I think they're really, really powerful. And they make a lot of sense. The first one is the map is not the territory. Think about a map is not the territory. A map is a representation of how things are. So if the map is pretty close, if we're traveling from California to New York, and we're coming to a location, and on our map it says, okay, we're looking at a map. It shows right here. The road we're on shows New York. We're going in the right direction. And on this corner coming up, there should be a gas station, a library, and a rock store. And so that's what we see as being a reality in that corner. That's our map of that corner. And as we pass that corner, we see no gas station, no library, and a rock store. And we just see the foundation of the other building. So it's no longer an accurate representation of the map. So the map is not accurate to what is actually at that location. Now, it got us there, and it's got us in the right direction, but it's not particularly accurate. Now, I mean, if it was way off, if the street showed, we should turn right here to go to New York, and we really needed to continue on, then now that map, which is not the proper territory, that map is going to take us in the wrong direction. So we got to try to keep our map of how life is, as close to reality as powerful. And there's another one that I like. It's people aren't broken. It's their maps of the territory that's broken. And if you start looking at people that way, because we tend to start thinking of people as, well, that's a bad. People are not bad. It's their thinking that's bad. Their map is wrong. They're representing things to themselves that aren't anywhere close to how they really are. And that's how we have these differences in politics, in ideas, in ideologies, because in people's minds, this is the way it is. And if reality is way off from what their map is, they're going to have a lot of trouble. They're not going to get along with too many people. they're going to be in serious legal trouble, financial trouble, life trouble, because their map is totally not representative of what reality is. You probably have met some of those people. Maybe you know them intimately. So these are presuppositions that we go into NLP as we presuppose these are truths. Another one is the past does not equal the future. Tony Robbins talks about this quite frequently. The past does not equal the future. So we go into our philosophy of life using NLP, presupposing this is true. Just because this happened yesterday does not mean it's going to happen today and or tomorrow. Yeah, I might have lost yesterday. Today, I don't have to lose just because of yesterday's loss. It's like tennis, right? You get these tennis players and sometimes this is the number one player in the world. And this guy, number 14, well, how does he beat that guy? Because all he has to do is be the best player today. Yesterday, that guy would have beat him. Today is different. The past does not equal the future. It's a great presupposition to have in your mind, because then you can always change going forward. Then all of a sudden, failures are not failures anymore. They are just feedback that we can use to change course. It's like when we talked about psycho-cybernetics, that automatic targeting system. We have a goal to where we're going, we have a destination. We're always going to be kind of floating off course, constantly correcting. And so that's what we do, also using NLP when we're thinking about the past, the future, where we are, where we're going, and what we got to do to get there, right? Here's another presupposition that's powerful philosophy. Everything is achievable if we break it down into smaller chunks. Everything is achievable if we break it down into smaller chunks. Sometimes things feel like, this is too big. We need to just break it down. Break it down. Sometimes picturing we're driving from California to New York can be overwhelming. Oh, man. We're not driving there in one day. We are driving at night. It's like driving at night from California to New York. Your headlights, you can only see 300 feet ahead of you. That's all you need to be concerned with. But you're going 3,000 miles with those 300-foot headlights. And when you get to the end of that light, now you got another 300 foot of view ahead of you. So if you break it down to that, it's like running a marathon. If you start thinking about the 26 miles yet to go, that's going to be tough. When you think, can I run another quarter mile? Can I run another 100 feet? Yeah. You keep breaking it down, and doing it that way. Empowerment comes via responsibility. That could be deep. Empowerment becomes via responsibility. I think that comes from the presupposing that, the buck stops with us. We're not going to be in the blame game. We are responsible for the results that we're getting today and what we're going to get in the future. So we are empowered because we are in control. We are in control. Responsibility. Responsibility. The ability to respond is with us. That's empowering to know that we are in control of how we react to everything. We're not in control of everything that happens or what happens to us. We are empowered by what happens for us. And so that's empowering. This is really so true. And once you get this concept down, you see it everywhere, and it gives you understanding of everything in a different light, from a different perspective. People respond to perception and not reality. This goes back to the map does not equal the territory. Their map is messed up. People respond to perception and not reality. So the way that people perceive something, that's how they're responding. It may not have anything to do with the truth. It's like all cops are out there trying to hunt down minorities and shoot them. This is some people have this perception. And so can you imagine with that perception how they're going to respond to any contact with the police? They're going to respond to their perception, not how reality is. And so that's just one example. If you break it on down, NLP is the science of personal excellence, the model even of excellence, and can be used to be the best high achiever you can be. And that's what we're in the business here in this podcast, is high achievers. And so anything is possible when you break it down into bite-sized chunks. So now, you know what? I think you've got a pretty good idea of what NLP is, how it started, and what it can be used for. And I would encourage you to delve deeper into NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming. Our neurons, our emotions, tied to the language that we use to talk to ourselves and other people, and also how we process information that comes to us that we all take in through sight, sound, taste, touch, feel, and we predominantly use VAK, visual, audio, kinesthetic. Kinesthetic being feeling, obviously auditory is hearing, visually, self-explanatory, seeing. So that's the podcast for today, everybody. NLP. If you think someone might just want or need to hear this, please share this with them. If you're watching and or listening on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell. Smash it so that you get notified when the next episode comes out. So we not only film these podcasts with me and my engineers here, but we also have this podcast up on almost all of the podcast platforms, Amazon, Spotify, iTunes. Listen to it in the car. Share with other people. Thanks for checking in, everybody. I'm Cliff Yates. This is The Cliff Yates Show.